We've got that little game going at 9:20 Eastern Time tonight in Indianapolis between Duke and Wisconsin. And guys, I'm going to break it down for you and give you my free play and my in-depth analysis on that contest in just a moment. But today, I want to spend a little time talking about baseball. It's the de facto opening day. Unless, of course, you want to believe last night's game between the Cubs and Cards at Wrigley really was opening day. But listen, everybody's breaking out the bats and balls today, and I'm going to repeat what I tell you at the start of every season. No matter the sport, the opening 3 weeks of the season is the only time we, as gamblers, have the advantage over the odds makers. It is always that way because they generally don't know any more about the teams at the start of the regular season than any gambler out there. And in baseball and any sport, you're going to find the softest numbers and the most inaccurate numbers in the opening 3 weeks of the season. At that point, after the first 3 weeks, listen, the odds makers start taking back the advantage. But that doesn't mean you're not able to make money, especially in baseball. And again, baseball is the easiest sport to bet. It's always been my most profitable sport. It's always been my favorite sport. And yet you will find so many handicappers who immediately after the Super Bowl will take the rest of the year off. Or immediately after tonight's game will take the summer off. Now, some guys will hang out till the NBA playoffs end, in the middle of June. And then they hang up the gone fishing sign. Fools. Dummies, morons. That's the bottom line. They don't realize how much money that can be made, or they're just too damn lazy to do so. Because listen, it is a test of endurance. When we talk about the dog days of summer, it is the baseball season. But the baseball season offers us an incredible opportunity that no other sport does because you have teams playing 5 or 6 games a week. You have starting pitchers that are going every 4 or 5 days. It gives you a chance to establish a rhythm as a gambler, and that's the most important thing about baseball. Following teams where when I say to you it's so difficult to jump on and off the bandwagon when I'm talking basketball, when I'm talking football, that's not the case in baseball. You can ride the streaks. You can surf them to wins. You can ride those hot pitchers. And, of course, you can also get off anytime because you have the luxury of having so many games in a particular week. Now, many have asked, well, who does best in baseball here at the sites? And there's a couple of ways of answering that. Listen, now Brad Wilton, the past 2 years, and he's only been here for 2 baseball seasons. He's made $10 bettors, $12,090 the past 2 years combined. He lost last night a 40-dime play on the Cubs, so I guess we're just going to write him off for the 2015 campaign. Jeff Benton, regular season action the past 2 years. Actually, last year, regular season action. Last year, in the regular season, he made $10 bettors $8,360. Then he had a horrific postseason where he lost $1,600. So he netted out for the season $6,750. But that's not the way to look at it. You really have to look at the regular season because I'll be honest, what happens when the postseason comes around is that by that time, you really aren't focusing as a handicapper on baseball because you've got college football in full swing since the end of August. You got the NFL starting up second week in September. You got the NBA right around the corner with college basketball. So you're not really focused any longer on baseball like you are from this point forward till the end of August. So a lot of handicappers hit a slide when the postseason comes around. Now, that doesn't mean that Benton and Wilton are the only 2 winners here at the site. Listen, the other thing you have to consider is guys that have big plays, major wager releases. Guys like Scott Delaney, who with his 50-dime plays or higher in all sports the past 4 years, and I'm going to talk about his big play he has going tonight in basketball. Well, he's made $10 bettors with those 50-dime plays or higher. $43,000 the past 4 years. There's guys like Shawn Michaels with his 100-dime major wager releases. It doesn't matter the sport. In fact, just coming off another one with Wisconsin over Kentucky on Saturday. When they release one of those major wager plays, guys, you got to pay attention to them. That's the bottom line. There's guys who are on overall winning streaks. Guys like Gabriel DuPont, for example, who's made $10 bettors in all sports the first 3 months and 1 week of this season. In all sports, over $9,800. In all sports, over $16,000 since Thanksgiving. So when they release major plays, you'll have to definitely unload on them. And again, for me, as I've said, baseball is my most profitable sport. That doesn't mean I win every single day and every single week. But listen, I certainly can turn a profit. I've done so 13 of the past 17 years, 12 of the past 15. It's just that damn easy to make money in baseball. Now, how has baseball betting changed and baseball gambling changed over the years? 15 years ago, up to 15 years ago, you didn't have to be so overwhelmingly concerned with run line plays. Because back in the day, yeah, when Randy Johnson was pitching or Roger Clemens was pitching, go back even further when I was a kid and Tom Seaver was pitching and Steve Carlton were pitching. When the dominant guys were pitching, yeah, you're going to see some big numbers. You're going to see 230, 240, okay? And then if you wanted to go with them, well, you were either a moron for going ahead and laying the big price or you had to play them on the run line. That's not the case now. Nowadays, you have a team that's won 5 out of 6 games, and they're at home with their number 4 starter on the hill. And even if he's a sub 500 pitcher, I assure you, you're laying $1.55, $1.70 if they happen to be paying a team that's lost 5 out of 6. That's just the way it is. So you always have to consider the run line plays. Listen, run line plays. You got to look at them too, not only because it's the great equalizer taking overwhelming favorites down to manageable chalk prices, but you're also sometimes taking that 150 to 160 favorite and making him a 110 to 125 underdog if you're willing to lay the 1.5 runs. And that's what you will see myself and a ton of other handicappers here do on a regular basis. It's just the way baseball gambling has changed over the years. The other thing you always have to be leery about in baseball is, please, I used to work with this dope in Atlanta. You got to bet the dogs. You got to bet the dogs. And all you'd hear from this clown was, oh, I hit 2 out of 3 dogs last night. He didn't tell you, of course, that he lost 6 of his previous 8 dogs. I don't care. If you don't hit dogs at least a 50 percentile range, you're not going to make money. Because if you bet dogs for dogs' sakes, all you're doing is you've got a dog that you've got to scratch those fleas. That's what a dog is. So please, don't get enamored with betting underdogs. Betting underdogs. Now, my personal cap, I will not lay a favorite over $1.60. And to be honest with you, that is the limit that I give most handicappers here at the site. So when many of them are releasing plays overnight or early in the morning, as a handicapper, you've got to be able to project where that line is going to go when you're playing on a favorite. That's the bottom line. To be honest with you, very rarely will you find me take a favorite over 150. Generally, that's generally pretty much the upper limits of my cap. And why do I set a cap of 160? Because you don't need to be told to bet an overwhelming favorite by a professional handicapper. You ain't paying for that type of advice, guys. You can do that on your own, and you'll probably do pretty damn well. That's the bottom line. So that's your baseball primer here as we start the season. Now let's talk a little basketball. I had mentioned Scott Delaney earlier, half-price play of the day. Remember on Saturday, hit his first $150 play in college basketball in his 12 years as a charter member of the site, and he cashed in with Duke in the rout of Michigan State. Well, tonight he has something bigger. In the 12 years, again, as a charter member of the site, today he has a $200 play. He is 7-2 lifetime with 200 plays in all sports. Number 8 out of 10 goes today, Duke, Wisconsin. And again, you can get it as the half-price play of the day. And keep in mind, Scott, over the past 4 years, with 100 releases, those are his normal max wager plays, 79, 51, and 2 with those plays in all sports the past 4 years, and today's play is twice as strong. And I told you, of course, the $10 bettors with 59 plays or higher have made over $44,000 in all sports the past 4 years as well. Now, you can get it for half price simply by using coupon code HALF, H-A-L-F. FYI, Brian Rosica, who has his $100 max winner, number 11 out of 13, and has his overall winner, number 23 out of 32 going today, he is on the opposite side of Delaney. And to be honest, if you ask the 8 or 9 handicappers here at the site, you're going to get 8 or 9 different opinions on this game, and you're probably going to find an even split right down the middle. That's pretty much why it's a pick'em affair, guys. Listen, your other coupons, charity play of the week, etc., you can find all the details over on the homepage. But let me now focus on this particular game since we've now done our baseball dissertation, and it's now time to talk a little basketball. Why am I not using this game here today? Because I couldn't find a basketball winner if I knew the final score in advance here lately. I mean, 2 weeks ago today, I was on the verge of winning for a 9th time in 11 weeks, right? And I was on a roll in basketball. I mean, up to that point, I had gone, oh God, what was my... I was like on a 30, I think I was on a 39-22 run in college basketball over the previous 10 weeks. And again, I'd won 8 out of 10 weeks. Well, guys, listen. I went over this past betting week. I've lost 6 straight days. So perhaps you should take what I'm going to say with a grain of salt in terms of this particular analysis and this play here tonight. The reason I'm not using it is because I can go over to baseball and find a winner a hell of a lot easier right now. Listen, sometimes it's about cutting your losses and knowing when to fold them rather than to keep playing a losing hand. And right now, I've just lost the feeling for basketball, and that's unfortunate, especially at the end of the season, because it mars what had been a great season. So that's why I'm giving the play away for free. But that didn't mean I didn't handicap and didn't break it down every which way but sideways. So you got a virtual pick'em game, and a lot of people are going to focus instead on what happened when these two played in the Coaches versus Cancer Center Classic back early in the season at the Kohl Center in Milwaukee. In that particular game, a game that Duke won with ease, I kind of find it interesting that, you had a couple of key players who aren't going to be key players this time around. You had Jackson, the point guard for Wisconsin, who has seen limited minutes in the 3 games he has returned from a broken foot. After missing, like 8 weeks of action. Well, he had 25 points in that game. On the other hand, you had Suleiman, who for Duke had 14 points and played a key role defensively in that game, who is no longer on the team. In that particular game, you had Sam Decker, who has had a marvelous postseason, limited to 2 for 5 shooting and just 5 points in the game because he was still bothered by an ankle sprain. You had the other forward, Nigel Hayes, for Wisconsin, in foul trouble in that game. He had a season-low 4 points in 23 minutes, 1 of 5 shooting. And meanwhile, Frank Kaminsky, the final line in that game, he had 17 points and 9 rebounds, but he 5 for 12 from the field. Often, Duke would take one of their forwards instead of Okafor and put him on Kaminsky, because when Kaminsky would drift out of the paint and go to the perimeter, they had a guy with athleticism to keep up with him. Now, on the other hand, Duke's big guys weren't exactly overwhelming in the game. Okafor, very quietly offensively, 13 points and 6 rebounds. Justice Winslow, who has been dynamite as well here in the postseason, has definitely helped his NBA draft stock. Just 5 points and 5 rebounds. You know who really killed the Badgers in that particular game? It was the Duke backcourt, as Tyus Jones, the other freshman, and Quinn Cook scored 22 and 13 points respectively, and they were just too darn athletic and too darn fast, constantly penetrated the Wisconsin defense, and then they kick it back or dump it off low, if not going to the hoop, and that's what hurt Wisconsin in that go-around. But listen, things have changed. You got a Wisconsin team that is coming off back-to-back wins and upsets, really, if you look at the point spread, of 2 straight number 1 seeds, right? Of Arizona and Kentucky. You had a team, though, here in Wisconsin that has continually played from behind in every single game. Think about it. Against Kentucky, against Arizona, against North Carolina, against Oregon. At one point or another, they were down in every single one of those games, okay? But Wisconsin has size. You saw Okafor. Yes, he came back and he had a nice game against Michigan State, an undersized team with 18 points offensively. I think he only had 16 combined points when he was going up against a much bigger and more physical front lines of Gonzaga and Utah, right? And he was just a non-factor offensively in those particular games. Remember how Duke struggled against Utah, right? I mean, yeah, they rolled past Gonzaga, then they beat up Michigan State. But, then you have to say, well, look at what Wisconsin did against Kentucky. Everybody was talking about Kentucky's defense, talking about Kentucky's height. And granted, Kentucky came into that game, and I spouted all those stats for you in supporting Kentucky on Saturday in a teaser. This was a team that was holding opponents to just 35.2% from the field in shooting. And Wisconsin shot almost 48% against the Wildcats, right? I mean, just a phenomenal game. If you analytics, I don't know if you're in them for basketball, into them, but they averaged 1.23 points per possession against the Wildcats. Couple of interesting tidbits here. First meeting of number 1 seeds in the title game since Kansas beat Memphis in overtime back in 2008. This is the 4th title game rematch of a regular season encounter in the past 6 years. 4th time it's happened in 6 years. What happened the first 3 times? Team that won the regular season game won the title game. Yep. You know, since 1985, only Arizona in 1997 and Kansas in 2008 has beaten two #1 seed teams in the Final Four. So Wisconsin certainly has that going for them. You have to ask yourself, are the Badgers due for a letdown? That was a huge revenge win for them against Kentucky. But then I hit you with this devil's advocate coming at you. Wasn't beating Arizona, a team that they nipped last year in overtime, a huge game as well? And did they collapse against Kentucky? Did they play great? First 1.5 periods of that game, not exactly, but they finished with a flourish, and only thing that counts is the final score in that game. So I'll tell you what, I think it deserves to be a pick'em game. I just have a feeling Wisconsin, a senior-laden team, a veteran team that took care of business against Arizona, took care of business against Kentucky, has everything going for it. I think they're just one of those teams of destiny. I think that the relative inexperience, even though we've now played 38 games or whatever for Duke, will certainly have an effect here. I don't think Okafor is going to have a big game. I think Duke's thin bench definitely will hurt them right now. And with the way Decker and Hayes are playing now, as opposed to how they played in the Coaches versus Cancer Classic, again, Decker with the sprained ankle, Hayes with the foul trouble, I just think that you have a front line that can give and take with the best that Duke has to offer. I still think Duke has the advantage in the backcourt now, granted, with Cook and Jones, but I still think Wisconsin is the way to go here. But again, it's a pick-em game. It's a 50-50 proposition, and that's so damn tough to pick this game. I'm going to watch it as a fan. I'm not going to bet on it. That's my bottom line. But I do like whiskey in this one. I have a baseball complimentary play for you, too, as well. Guys, listen, I'm looking at the Arizona-San Francisco game, and if I had to play a dog on the nighttime card, I would take Arizona plus $1.25 to $1.30 in this particular contest. And I think this price is going to escalate on San Francisco, making the underdog more attractive here as we get closer to the first pitch at 10:10 Eastern Time at Chase Field. Because you got the Giants, the defending world champions, going, and you got Madison Bumgarner going last year, and you know he was Cy Young reincarnated down the stretch and in the postseason for the Giants. But remember, this is a guy who in 6 spring training starts had a 4.91 earned run average. Now, spring training starts don't always lead positive or negative spring training performance, lead to positive or negative corresponding opening months of the season. But I do think it's kind of interesting that Bumgarner last year also struggled in the month of April, even though he had a wonderful spring. But last year in April outings, 4.25 earned run average. But more importantly, I look at this San Francisco Giants team, and, you know, they weren't a great offensive team last year. Well, Sandoval is plying his trade with the Red Sox, right? Hunter Pence is on the injured list. You took out 2 of the 3 biggest bats other than Posey in that whole damn lineup. Josh Collmenter going for Arizona, a guy who they brought out of the bullpen early last season, put back in the starting rotation, had a great season. In fact, 20 outings at Chase Field, 16 of them were starts, had a 2.63 earned run average, pitched much better in the confines of the Dome Stadium than he did on the road, where his ERA was over 2 runs higher. And he's one of those sinker ball slider pitchers who throws a lot of off-speed stuff that really confuses hitters. And I think that works to your advantage when you're playing early in the season. And he came off a very strong spring training final tune-up against Indians, where he worked 7 innings of shutout ball, allowing just 3 hits. So I like the Diamondbacks as the home dog as your baseball complimentary play. That'll do it, guys. Best of luck to you all, and I'll catch you again tomorrow when we do this one more time.